Current prices have led to billions of daily AI queries, driving demands for data centers of staggering scale. Meta's proposed Hyperion data center in Louisiana is projected to be the size of Manhattan, to cost up to $10 billion, and to consume electricity equivalent to the peak summertime demand of up to 1 million New Orleans households, each hour of every day of the year. Data centers impose real costs on society through pollution, land and water use, and grid strain. And these costs are borne by members of nearby communities and the general public, not AI companies. As an economist, I know that markets work best for society when prices reflect the true cost of actions. That's not the case with AI today. My ongoing research with collaborators at IBM and the University of Colorado seeks to quantify one of these hidden costs, the climate damages associated with data center energy use. We're finding that these damages can vary by several orders of magnitude, depending on things like the type of query posed, the model used, and the location of the data center. And that these damages are amplified by reliance on dirty backup power and continued operation of coal-fired power plants because of a race amongst AI companies for energy. As an example, a simple 5-second low-resolution video can cause climate damages of 60 cents. This is over 300 times the per-query subscription price that AI users pay. And it's society who makes up that difference by paying it.
In having these conversations about the impact of AI on the environment, we have to remember that 100% of what we're being told is about national averages and what's happening on the aggregate level. When in reality, what we've tend to have seen in the past, historically, any time there is a productive revolution, is not national impact, but local impact. So these data centers are going to be in places that historically have been lower income with less representation and political clout. And the problem is that with something like AI, that benefit is going to be to high-income, knowledge-centered areas. But the burden, the economic burden, both environmental and economic, is going to be on poor, underrepresented communities. My research looks at building a model. And the model that I call the externality equity nexus, that rolls right off the tongue, is meant specifically to look on a zip code-based impact of putting these data centers wherever we are deciding to put them. Because as crazy as what I'm about to say is, all of the decisions are being made blindly. All of the discussions are being made with the AI companies about what their impact is as a company, not on a community level. And with all due respect to the producers of shows like Love is Blind, this is not Love is Blind. This is not Married at First Sight. This is us deciding where we're going to put these data centers that may have devastating impacts on their economies.
Well, in case it wasn't obvious, I'm a lawyer. So what are we going to do about it? The first thing I want you to know is that we have laws called environmental review laws that require us to assess the environmental impacts of large construction projects whenever they require any kind of a governmental approval or a permit. And that's true at the federal level, often at the state level, and even at the local level. And so at each and every single one of these points, we have rules in place that require us to think about the things we've just heard about. In addition, environmental impacts, it means energy, it means water, but it also means impacts on our society, things like employment and education. And we are required to consider those things when we consider whether or not to allow facilities to be built. Now, there is always going to be pressure to take shortcuts, to move fast and break things, but I don't think that we want to do that with the environment. And that is why these rules are here, to be followed, and why lawyers are here is to ensure that those rules are followed. Now, there are all kinds of ways that the possible arguments over what to consider in one of these permits can be moved around by interested parties. There are things, there are techniques, there are methods. We want to ensure not only that our decision makers understand the environmental impacts of these facilities and this technology, but also that they are well informed about all of the various methods that we have available to us and the expertise that we have in our society to assess those impacts accurately and with the consideration of equity. And so, I will say, we have the laws in place, and what we need to do is ensure that they are followed.
If each of the AI queries in 2025 was associated with 60 cents worth of climate damages, those emissions would represent 10% of global annual greenhouse gas emissions. The scale of this impact demands policy action. In the absence of federal intervention to align the price of AI use with its cost to society, there are several actions that stakeholders can take to try to close this gap. First, municipalities need to ensure that data centers are not being subsidized and that zoning approval is conditional on verifiable emission standards, full cost accounting of grid impacts, and compliance with existing regulation, like Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. Utilities can ensure that other ratepayers do not subsidize the transmission costs of data centers, and that these large industrial sources of electricity demand pay rates that reflect the true costs of their use. Finally, AI companies can contribute to these solutions by investing in technologies that make the grid more efficient, such as tools to help coordinate distributed energy resources, and investing in innovation within storage technology so that backup power comes from renewables. All of these actions require a better understanding of the trade-offs associated with AI, which needs more data to be publicly available. My hope is that my research looking at the query level accounting of climate damages can help move us toward a world where the price of AI is equal to the cost it imposes on society, because I think that is necessary for these powerful models to improve human well-being.
My vision for a better future is a better future than the people in 1927 had, than people in 1827 had, than the people who had any kind of industrial revolution before this one. So I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that those decision makers, those policy makers, those lawmakers who are making the laws and the regulations actually think about the location-based impact of the decisions that they make. In Silicon Valley, there's this saying, move fast and break things. They stole that from economics, right? Because entrepreneurship is about creative destruction. You go in, you create a thing that's better than what existed before, and now the people who are out there already making things are forced to adopt your technology or go out of business. And that may be well and good when you're coming up with new technologies, but the things we don't want to break are communities. And the history of the United States and the history of industrialization on Earth has been a history of breaking communities. And I think through my externality equity nexus, we can better understand where that impact is going to be. So when making these regulations in the future, it's not so much about moving fast and breaking things as it is about thinking about what you're doing and fixing things.
As a lawyer, I tend to focus on opportunities for public input and intervention and expert intervention at strategic points in decision-making processes. And again, I said, we have many decision-making processes in permitting where we can get experts into rooms and we can get public input in order to influence the outcomes of these decision-making processes. Now, there is an argument in the air, and it is a reasonable argument, that we can't always afford to have this lengthy review. It takes too long, it costs too much money. And for something like housing that we've been doing for a long time, that is probably a reasonable argument. But for a new technology with absolutely uncertain impacts, but sure to be very severe, and providing, let us say, to be determined social value currently, we absolutely need to take the time to insist that the decisions that are being made are accounting correctly for what is being done. How is that going to happen? There are lots of ways to get involved, whether it is simply by voting, whether it is by calling up a legislator and telling them your opinion, whether it's by forming a community group to discuss these issues and writing a letter to someone who is going to make a decision, whether at the state level, at the federal level, or at your local level, or by supporting groups who are in the fight every single day trying to make a difference. The work is being done, and it's possible to get involved. And I have to say that every single one of us, everyone in this room, everyone listening, and everyone out there deserves to have a say in what impacts artificial intelligence is going to have on our environment, on our natural resources, and on our society. Thank you very much.